The grand ballroom glowed with golden light, filled with the city's richest and most powerful families. Tonight was supposed to be a simple business arrangement, a marriage meant to unite two powerful crime families and end years of dangerous rivalry. But nothing about tonight would go as planned. Isabella Moore stood quietly near the back of the ballroom, wearing a simple black dress, completely out of place among the expensive gowns and glittering jewelry surrounding her. She was not a guest. She was hired staff, working for the catering company that served the wealthy families of the city. Tonight, her only job was to carry trays of champagne and stay invisible among the crowd. She had no idea that tonight, invisibility would be impossible. At the center of the ballroom stood Victor Moretti, the most powerful mafia boss in the city, tall and commanding, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit. Tonight was supposed to be his engagement ceremony, a carefully arranged marriage to Camila Torres, daughter of a rival crime family, meant to end years of conflict between their two powerful bloodlines. But Camila Torres was nowhere to be found. Behind the scenes, panic quietly spread among the family members. Camila had disappeared just an hour before the ceremony, leaving behind only a short note explaining she could not marry a man she barely knew, a man chosen for business, not love. The families, terrified of insulting each other and restarting old conflicts, scrambled desperately to fix the crisis before the guests noticed anything wrong. Victor's father, Salvatore Moretti, pulled him aside urgently. "We cannot let this ceremony collapse tonight," he whispered sharply. "Too many powerful people are watching. If this engagement fails publicly, it will look like weakness, an invitation for our enemies to attack." "So what do you suggest?" Victor asked, his voice tight with controlled frustration. "We continue the ceremony," Salvatore said firmly. "Find someone, anyone, similar enough in appearance to stand beside you temporarily, just long enough to save face publicly. We'll explain the situation quietly to our closest allies later." Victor's jaw tightened, disliking the plan immediately, though he understood the desperate necessity behind it. "And where exactly do you plan to find a replacement in the next 10 minutes? Salvatore's eyes scanned the ballroom quickly, searching until they landed on a young woman near the back, quietly serving champagne to unaware guests. She had similar dark hair, a similar build to Camila, and most importantly, she was here, available immediately. "Her," Salvatore said, pointing subtly toward Isabella. "She'll do." Before Isabella even understood what was happening, 2 guards approached her quickly, quietly escorting her away from her serving tray toward a private room backstage. "Wait, what's going on?" Isabella asked, confusion and fear clear in her voice. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're not in trouble," one guard assured her quickly. "Mr. Moretti's father needs a favor. It will only take a few minutes." Isabella was pushed gently but firmly into a small room, where Salvatore Moretti waited, his expression serious and urgent. "I need you to stand beside my son during a brief ceremony," Salvatore explained quickly. "Just for a few minutes. Smile, stay quiet, and let him place a ring on your finger. That's all." Isabella's eyes widened, complete disbelief crossing her face. "You want me to pretend to be his fiancé? In front of all these powerful people?" "You'll be paid generously," Salvatore said quickly, sliding a thick envelope of cash toward her. "More money than you'd earn serving drinks for an entire year." Isabella hesitated, glancing at the money, then back at Salvatore's desperate expression. She had bills to pay, a small apartment barely affording her enough security, and here, unexpectedly, was an opportunity too large to ignore. "Just a few minutes?" she asked carefully. "Just a few minutes," Salvatore promised. "Nobody will ever know the difference." Reluctantly, Isabella nodded, her heart pounding nervously as she was quickly guided toward the ballroom's main stage, where Victor stood waiting, completely unaware of the switch about to happen. The lights dimmed slightly as the ceremony began, soft music playing as Isabella walked carefully onto the stage, her legs trembling beneath her simple black dress. Victor turned toward her, his expression controlled and calm, clearly trained to hide any surprise from the watching crowd, though Isabella noticed a brief flicker of confusion cross his sharp eyes. He recovered quickly, reaching gently for her hand as the officiant began speaking softly about loyalty, unity, and family honor. Isabella barely heard the words, her heart pounding too loudly in her ears, panic and adrenaline mixing dangerously inside her chest. Then, the moment arrived. Victor reached into his pocket, pulling out a stunning diamond ring, meant originally for Camila Torres. Isabella's breath caught as he gently took her trembling hand, sliding the ring slowly onto her finger, sealing an engagement neither of them had ever intended to happen. The crowd erupted into applause, completely unaware of the truth hidden behind the elegant ceremony they had just witnessed. Isabella stood frozen, staring down at the glittering ring now resting on her finger, suddenly realizing the true weight of what she had just agreed to. Victor leaned close, his voice low enough for only her to hear. "Who are you?" he asked quietly, his sharp eyes studying her carefully. Before Isabella could answer, a loud commotion erupted at the ballroom entrance. Guards shouted urgently, guests gasped in shock, and through the parting crowd, Camila Torres appeared suddenly, breathless and furious, staring directly at the stage where Isabella now stood wearing her ring. "What is going on here?" Camila demanded loudly, her voice echoing through the stunned ballroom. "Who is that woman standing beside my fiancé?" The ballroom fell into stunned silence, every guest turning to watch Camila Torres storm through the crowd, her furious eyes locked on Isabella standing frozen beside Victor. The golden lights that once felt warm now felt blinding, exposing every trembling movement Isabella made. "Someone explain this immediately," Camila demanded, stopping just a few steps from the stage, her voice sharp enough to silence the entire room. Salvatore Moretti moved quickly, stepping forward with practiced calm, though sweat glistened faintly on his forehead. "Camila, my dear, we thought something terrible had happened to you. When you disappeared, we feared the worst." "You replaced me," Camila said flatly, ignoring his excuse completely, her eyes still fixed on Isabella. "With a stranger." Victor, regaining his composure quickly, stepped slightly in front of Isabella, his voice calm but firm. "Camila, you left without a word an hour before our ceremony. What exactly did you expect us to do?" Camila's jaw tightened, clearly caught between anger and embarrassment. "I expected patience, not a replacement pulled from the catering staff." Whispers rippled instantly through the crowd, guests exchanging shocked glances as the truth spread quickly among them. Isabella felt her face burning with humiliation, wishing desperately she could disappear entirely from the ballroom floor. "This is a misunderstanding," Victor announced loudly, addressing the crowd directly, his voice steady and commanding despite the chaos surrounding him. "Nothing more. Please, enjoy the evening. My family will handle this privately." Guards quickly moved through the room, guiding curious guests back toward the refreshments and music, while Victor, Salvatore, Camila, and Isabella were escorted swiftly into a private room backstage. The moment the door closed, Camila rounded angrily on Salvatore. "You humiliated me in front of everyone." "You humiliated yourself," Salvatore snapped back, his patience finally breaking, "the moment you ran from your responsibilities without a single explanation." "I ran because I refused to marry a man I don't love, chosen only for business convenience." Camila shot back furiously. Victor remained silent, watching the argument unfold with controlled frustration, while Isabella stood quietly in the corner, feeling completely out of place in a conflict that had nothing to do with her, yet somehow now involved her directly. Finally, Victor spoke, his voice cutting sharply through the tension. "Enough. Camila, if you don't wish to marry me, that's your right. Nobody will force you." He turned toward his father. "And you, using an innocent stranger without her full understanding of the consequences, that decision was reckless." Salvatore's expression tightened, though he said nothing in response, clearly recognizing the truth in his son's words. Camila studied Isabella carefully for the first time since entering the room, her anger slowly shifting into confused curiosity. "Who exactly are you?" "My name is Isabella," she answered quietly. "I was hired to serve drinks tonight. I didn't know what I was agreeing to until it was already happening." Camila's expression softened slightly, understanding replacing her initial fury. "So you're not some rival family's plan to embarrass me?" Isabella shook her head quickly. "I promise, I had no idea any of this would happen. I just needed the money they offered." Camila turned toward Salvatore, her voice cold but calmer now. "You truly dragged an innocent waitress into our family's chaos, just to protect appearances?" Salvatore remained silent, clearly uncomfortable under the weight of everyone's judgment. Victor sighed heavily, running a hand through his dark hair. "Regardless of how this happened, we now have a serious problem. Hundreds of guests just witnessed an engagement ceremony between myself and a woman who isn't Camila. Rumors will spread within hours, especially among families searching for any sign of weakness within our organization. What do you suggest we do? Camila asked, crossing her arms. Victor considered the situation carefully, his sharp mind working through several difficult options. Finally, he turned toward Isabella, his expression serious. I need to ask you something important, he said. And I need complete honesty in your answer. Isabella nodded nervously. Okay. Would you be willing to continue this arrangement temporarily? Victor asked. Publicly, at least, until we figure out how to handle tonight's situation without damaging my family's reputation. Isabella's eyes widened in shock. You want me to keep pretending to be your fiancé? Only temporarily, Victor clarified quickly. A few weeks, perhaps. Long enough for the rumors to settle, and for my family to quietly resolve the situation with Camila's family without triggering unnecessary conflict. Isabella glanced nervously between Victor, Salvatore, and Camila, completely overwhelmed by the sudden weight of the decision placed before her. This is insane, she whispered. I'm not from your world. I don't understand any of this. You'll be compensated generously, Salvatore added quickly, though Victor shot him a sharp, disapproving glance. This isn't about money anymore, father, Victor said firmly. Then, turning back toward Isabella, his expression softened slightly. I understand if you refuse. This isn't fair to ask of someone who never wanted any part of our world. But if you agree, I promise you'll be protected and treated with complete respect throughout this arrangement. Isabella hesitated, her mind racing through the sudden danger and uncertainty surrounding this unexpected decision. Yet, strangely, beneath her fear, something about Victor's sincerity, his obvious respect despite the chaos, made her hesitate before refusing outright. If I agree, Isabella said slowly, I need guarantees. My safety, and complete honesty about what I'm truly getting myself into. Victor nodded seriously. You have my word. Isabella took a deep breath, glancing down once more at the glittering ring still resting on her finger, a symbol of a decision far bigger than anything she had ever imagined making in her simple, quiet life. All right, she said finally, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I'll do it. Victor's expression relaxed slightly, though the weight of tonight's chaos remained heavy in the room. As Isabella agreed to continue their temporary arrangement, none of them realized this decision would soon pull her far deeper into Victor's dangerous world than any of them could have predicted. The next morning, Isabella woke up in an unfamiliar bedroom, the soft sheets and elegant furniture reminding her instantly that her simple life had changed overnight. She sat up slowly, glancing around the beautifully decorated guest room inside Victor's private estate, still struggling to believe everything that had happened just hours before. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Come in, she called out. Victor entered quietly, dressed casually in a dark sweater, looking far less intimidating than he had the previous night. I hope you slept well, he said. Honestly, I barely slept at all, Isabella admitted, running a hand through her messy hair. This still feels like a dream, or maybe a nightmare, I haven't decided yet. Victor allowed a small, genuine smile. Understandable. I'm sorry you got pulled into this so suddenly. So what happens now? Isabella asked, sitting up straighter. Victor sat down carefully in a chair near the bed, his expression serious. For the next few weeks, you'll need to publicly act as my fiancé. Attend certain events, meet specific business associates, convince everyone this engagement is completely genuine. And privately? Isabella asked carefully. Privately, you're free to live your normal life as much as possible, Victor explained. I'll ensure you're protected at all times, and you'll be compensated generously for your time and inconvenience. Isabella nodded slowly, processing everything. What about my job? My apartment? Your job at the catering company has already been handled, Victor said. I've spoken with your employer directly. They understand you'll be unavailable for a while, and your position will remain secure once this arrangement ends. You didn't waste any time, Isabella said, slightly overwhelmed by how quickly Victor's world moved. In my line of work, Victor said simply, hesitation often leads to disaster. Over the following days, Isabella slowly adjusted to her strange new temporary life. She learned quickly how to navigate polite conversations with Victor's family members, how to smile convincingly during business dinners, and how to avoid revealing details about her true identity to curious guests. Victor, surprisingly patient, guided her carefully through each new challenge, offering quiet reassurance whenever her nerves threatened to show. Slowly, cautiously, an unexpected friendship began forming between them, built through shared secrets and constant proximity. One evening, after a particularly tense dinner with one of Victor's business partners, Isabella collapsed onto a couch in his private study, exhausted from maintaining her careful performance all evening. "You did well tonight," Victor said, pouring 2 glasses of wine and handing one to her. "I nearly forgot your cousin's name twice," Isabella admitted, laughing tiredly. "This is exhausting." "You're a natural," Victor said, smiling genuinely. "Better than I expected, honestly." Isabella took a small sip of wine, studying Victor curiously. "Can I ask you something personal?" Victor nodded. "Go ahead. Do you actually want to get married?" Isabella asked. "Or is this entire world just business arrangements and family obligations?" Victor's expression grew thoughtful, his usual controlled composure softening slightly. "Honestly, I've never truly considered marriage as anything beyond business. Arrangements like the one with Camila exist purely to strengthen alliances, prevent conflicts, protect the family's interests." "That sounds lonely," Isabella said quietly. Victor glanced at her, something unreadable flickering behind his sharp eyes. "It is," he admitted honestly. "Though lately, I've begun questioning if that's truly the life I want to continue living." Isabella felt her heart skip slightly at his honesty, surprised by how easily Victor had opened up to her, someone who days earlier had been a complete stranger, invisible among his wealthy guests. Their quiet conversation was interrupted suddenly by Marco, one of Victor's most trusted guards, entering the room with an urgent expression. "Sir, we have a problem," Marco said quickly. "Camila's family just released a statement to the press, denying any engagement between you and Isabella. They're publicly accusing our family of staging tonight's ceremony to embarrass them." Victor's relaxed expression vanished instantly, replaced by sharp, controlled anger. "They're trying to shift blame publicly?" "It seems so," Marco confirmed. "The story is already spreading quickly. Reporters are asking questions outside the estate right now." Isabella's stomach twisted nervously. "What does this mean for us?" Victor stood quickly, his mind clearly working through the sudden crisis. "It means our temporary arrangement just became far more complicated. If Camila's family is denying everything publicly, they're likely preparing something bigger, an attempt to publicly humiliate us, or worse." "Worse?" Isabella asked, her voice tightening with fear. Victor's jaw tightened, his eyes serious. In this world, public embarrassment often leads directly to violence. If Camila's family feels disrespected, they might retaliate in ways far more dangerous than press statements. Isabella felt her earlier comfort evaporate instantly, replaced by the familiar fear she had experienced the night of the ceremony. "What do we do now?" Victor turned toward her, his expression serious but reassuring. "We prepare carefully, and we make sure the truth, our truth, reaches the public before Camila's family controls the narrative completely." Marco nodded quickly, already moving to organize security and public relations teams. Victor turned back toward Isabella, his voice steady despite the growing tension surrounding them. "I promised you protection," he said firmly. "That promise hasn't changed, regardless of how complicated tonight's situation has become." Isabella nodded, drawing strength from his steady confidence, though she couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that tonight's crisis was only the beginning of a much larger storm heading directly toward both of them. By morning, the story had spread across every major news outlet in the city. Headlines screamed about a scandalous engagement switch, questioning Victor Moretti's honesty and stability as head of his family's organization. Reporters camped outside the estate gates, cameras ready, waiting for any glimpse of the mysterious woman now publicly known only as the replacement fiancé. Isabella watched nervously from an upstairs window, her stomach twisting at the sight of the growing crowd below. "This is getting worse," she said quietly as Victor entered the room behind her. "I know," Victor admitted, his expression tense but controlled. "Camila's family is using this scandal strategically, positioning themselves as victims while making our family look unstable and dishonest." "What can we do?" Isabella asked, turning to face him. Victor handed her a folder containing a prepared statement. "We're releasing our own version of events today, calmly, honestly, without directly attacking Camila's family. We admit the ceremony confusion, explain it as an unfortunate misunderstanding, and announce our engagement as genuine, moving forward publicly and confidently." Isabella's eyes widened as she skimmed through the statement. "You want the public to believe our engagement is real?" "For now, yes," Victor said carefully. "It's the only way to protect both our families from further conflict. If we admit weakness or confusion publicly, Camila's family will exploit it further." Isabella hesitated, glancing down at the ring still resting on her finger, a symbol that had already caused far more chaos than she ever imagined. "And afterward, once this crisis passes." Victor met her eyes steadily. "We'll figure out the future when it arrives. Right now, we focus on surviving today." Later that afternoon, Victor arranged a carefully staged public appearance, walking hand in hand with Isabella toward a private car, past a wall of shouting reporters and flashing cameras. Isabella forced a calm, confident smile, exactly as Victor had coached her, though her heart pounded nervously beneath her composed expression. "Just a few more steps," Victor whispered reassuringly, his hand steady around hers. They successfully reached the car, escaping the chaos of shouting reporters, though tension remained heavy between them as they drove toward a private business meeting Victor had scheduled with several important allies. At the meeting, powerful men from allied families studied Isabella carefully, clearly judging whether she was a genuine partner worthy of standing beside Victor, or merely a temporary solution to a scandal threatening their business interests. One older man, Giovanni Alessi, an influential ally of Victor's family, addressed Isabella directly. "Tell me, young lady, how did you first meet Victor?" Isabella hesitated only briefly, quickly recalling the careful story Victor had prepared. "We met through mutual friends, several months ago," she said smoothly. "Our relationship developed quietly, away from public attention, until recent events unfortunately exposed us sooner than we intended." Giovanni studied her carefully, his sharp eyes searching for any hint of deception. Finally, he nodded, seemingly satisfied. "You handle pressure impressively well, Isabella. Victor is fortunate to have someone so composed by his side." Victor squeezed Isabella's hand gently beneath the table, silently thanking her for her convincing performance. As the meeting continued, Isabella felt herself slowly gaining confidence, navigating Victor's dangerous world with increasing skill. However, not everyone at the gathering was convinced. Later, as guests mingled privately after the meeting, a younger man named Marco Alessi, Giovanni's ambitious nephew, approached Isabella quietly, his expression calculating. "You're quite convincing," Marco said quietly, his tone edged with suspicion. "Almost too convincing for someone who supposedly met Victor casually months ago." Isabella's heart skipped nervously, though she maintained her calm composure. "I'm not sure what you mean." Marco smiled coldly. "I mean, Isabella, that stories built too perfectly often hide truths far more complicated. I intend to discover exactly what you're truly hiding." Isabella's blood ran cold, quickly excusing herself before Marco could press further, hurrying to find Victor privately. "We have a problem," she whispered urgently once she found him. "Marco Alessi suspects something isn't right about our story." Victor's expression darkened instantly. Marco has always been ambitious, eager to prove his loyalty by uncovering secrets others miss. If he starts investigating us seriously, he could discover the truth before we're ready to reveal it ourselves. "What happens if he does?" Isabella asked, fear clear in her voice. Victor's jaw tightened, his mind clearly working through dangerous possibilities. "If Marco exposes our arrangement as false before we control the narrative ourselves, it won't just damage my reputation. It could ignite exactly the kind of conflict we've been desperately trying to avoid." Isabella felt the familiar tension of danger returning heavily to her chest. "So what do we do now?" Victor glanced toward Marco, who watched them carefully from across the room, his expression sharp and calculating. "Now," Victor said quietly, "we need to convince Marco Alessi, completely and permanently, that our engagement is real, before his suspicion becomes a far bigger threat than either of us can control." That night, Victor called an urgent private meeting with Isabella and Marco, hoping to end the suspicion before it grew into something far more dangerous. They met in Victor's private study, the tension in the room thick despite the calm exterior everyone tried to maintain. "Marco," Victor began evenly, "I understand your concerns. But I assure you, Isabella and I are genuine." Marco leaned back in his chair, studying them both carefully, his expression skeptical. "Then you won't mind answering a few simple questions, together, right now?" Victor exchanged a brief glance with Isabella before nodding calmly. "Ask what you'd like." Marco smiled slightly, clearly enjoying this moment of control. "Isabella, where exactly did you grow up?" "Chicago," Isabella answered smoothly, recalling the backstory Victor had carefully prepared for her. "My family moved to the city when I was 18. "And your family's business?" Marco pressed further. "My parents ran a small restaurant," Isabella replied confidently. "Nothing connected to Victor's world, which is exactly why our relationship stayed private for so long." Marco nodded slowly, clearly searching for cracks in her story but finding none yet. He turned his attention toward Victor. "And you never once mentioned her to anyone in the family before the ceremony?" "I preferred keeping personal matters private," Victor answered calmly. "Especially given the pressure surrounding my arranged engagement to Camila." Marco studied them both silently for a long, tense moment. Finally, he sighed, his suspicious expression softening slightly, though not completely disappearing. "Perhaps I've misjudged the situation," he admitted reluctantly. "But understand, Victor, I only question this because loyalty within our families depends entirely on honesty. If something isn't right, it endangers everyone." "I understand completely," Victor said evenly. "Your caution is appreciated, even if unnecessary in this case." Marco nodded once more, finally standing to leave. "I hope, for everyone's sake, that this truly is as simple as you've described." Once Marco left the room, Isabella exhaled deeply, relief flooding through her exhausted body. "That was terrifying," she admitted, sinking into the nearest chair. "You handled it perfectly," Victor said, genuine admiration clear in his voice. "I don't think I could have convinced him myself." Isabella managed a tired smile. "I'm getting good at lying, apparently." Victor's expression grew serious suddenly, his eyes studying her carefully. "Isabella, I need to ask you something honestly, without any performance or pretending." Isabella straightened slightly, curious about his sudden seriousness. "Okay. Do you regret agreeing to this arrangement?" Victor asked quietly. "Knowing everything you know now, the danger, the lies, the constant fear?" Isabella considered his question carefully, her mind reflecting on everything that happened since that chaotic night at the ceremony. "Honestly," she said slowly, "there are moments I regret it deeply, moments I'm terrified beyond words. But—" She paused, glancing up to meet his eyes directly. "There are other moments, moments like this conversation right now, where I don't regret it at all." Victor's expression softened, something genuine and vulnerable flickering behind his usually controlled demeanor. "I feel exactly the same way," he admitted quietly. "This entire situation started as chaos, forced upon both of us unfairly. But somehow, through all of it, I found something I never expected to find." "What's that?" Isabella asked softly, her heart pounding gently in anticipation. "Someone I can trust completely," Victor said honestly. "Someone who sees beyond my family's reputation, beyond the danger and power surrounding my life." Isabella felt warmth spreading through her chest, surprising herself with how deeply Victor's words affected her. "I feel that too," she whispered. For a brief moment, the tension and fear surrounding their entire situation faded away completely, replaced by something quieter, gentler, an unexpected connection neither of them had anticipated forming. Their quiet moment was interrupted abruptly by Marco's urgent return, his expression now serious and alarmed rather than suspicious. "Victor," Marco said quickly, his voice tight with genuine concern this time, "we have a real problem. Camila's family just made a public statement claiming Isabella is a fraud they intend to expose fully, with proof." Victor stood immediately, his calm demeanor replaced instantly by sharp alertness. "What proof?" Marco hesitated, clearly troubled by what he was about to reveal. "They claim to have evidence that Isabella was hired specifically for tonight's ceremony, evidence strong enough to destroy our family's credibility completely if it becomes public." Isabella felt her heart drop, sudden fear replacing the warmth she had felt just moments earlier. How could they possibly have proof? Victor's jaw tightened, his mind racing through dangerous possibilities. Someone from inside our own family must have leaked information deliberately, someone willing to betray us completely to protect Camilla's family's reputation instead. Isabella's breath caught sharply. A traitor? Again. Victor's eyes darkened with controlled anger, the earlier tenderness completely replaced by fierce protectiveness. Yes, he said grimly. And this time, we need to discover exactly who's responsible, before their betrayal destroys everything we've fought so hard to protect. The news of a traitor hit Victor harder than any public scandal could. He gathered his most trusted men within the hour, demanding answers before Camilla's family could release their so-called proof to the public. Who had access to information about Isabella's hiring? Victor asked sharply, pacing across his study while Marco and 2 senior guards stood at attention. Very few people, Marco answered carefully. Your father, myself, the 2 guards who brought her backstage that night, and the catering company that employed her originally. Victor's eyes narrowed. The catering company? It's possible, Marco admitted. Someone from Camilla's family could have questioned Isabella's employer directly, offering money for information. Isabella, sitting quietly nearby, spoke up suddenly. Wait. My manager, Mr. Reyes, he called me yesterday, asking strange questions about tonight's ceremony. At the time, I thought he was simply curious. Victor turned toward her sharply. What kind of questions? He asked if I was being paid extra for tonight, Isabella said, recalling the conversation carefully, and whether Salvatore Moretti had contacted me directly beforehand. Victor's jaw tightened. That's exactly the kind of information Camilla's family would need to build their case against us. Marco nodded grimly. It's possible your manager was approached and paid for details, without even understanding the full danger of what he was revealing. Victor turned to his guards immediately. Find him. Quietly. I want answers before Camilla's family releases anything publicly. Within hours, Victor's men located Isabella's former manager, Mr. Reyes, at his home, terrified and shaking as guards calmly explained the seriousness of the situation. Under gentle but firm questioning, he quickly admitted the truth. A representative from Camilla's family had indeed approached him days earlier, offering significant money for confirmation of Isabella's temporary hiring. With the traitor identified, though unintentional rather than malicious, Victor understood exactly how Camilla's family had obtained their proof. Now, the real challenge remained, controlling the situation before public scandal destroyed everything. That evening, Victor arranged an urgent private meeting with Camilla herself, hoping reason could succeed where public conflict would only cause further damage. Camilla, Victor said calmly as they sat together privately, I understand you're upset about how the ceremony unfolded. But exposing Isabella publicly won't repair your family's reputation. It will only escalate unnecessary conflict between us. Camilla crossed her arms, though her earlier anger seemed to have softened slightly since their last confrontation. My family feels humiliated, Victor. They believe exposing your family's deception will restore our reputation. And if I offered a different solution? Victor asked carefully. Camilla raised an eyebrow curiously. What solution? A public statement, Victor proposed, acknowledging honestly that our engagement began under confusing, chaotic circumstances, but has since developed into something genuine. No blame directed at your family. No accusations of deception. Simply an honest explanation that ends public speculation completely. Camilla considered this carefully, her sharp mind clearly weighing the benefits against her family's demand for public vindication. And what do we receive in return? She asked finally. My family's continued respect and cooperation, Victor said honestly. An alliance built on mutual benefit, rather than public embarrassment or forced marriage neither of us truly wanted. Camilla studied him carefully for a long moment before finally nodding slowly. I can convince my family to accept this arrangement, on one condition. Name it, Victor said. I want assurance that our family's business relationship remains strong, despite tonight's unusual circumstances, Camilla said firmly. This scandal cannot become a permanent source of tension between us. Victor extended his hand confidently. You have my word. Camilla shook his hand firmly, sealing an agreement that would finally end the dangerous conflict threatening both powerful families. Within days, the public statement was released exactly as planned, calming the media frenzy and quietly resolving the scandal that had threatened to spiral completely out of control. Camila's family, satisfied with the honest resolution, withdrew their earlier accusations completely, allowing peace to settle once again between the two powerful families. As the chaos finally faded, Victor found himself standing once again on his estate's private balcony, this time with Isabella beside him, both watching the city lights glow peacefully beneath the calm evening sky. "It's finally over," Isabella said softly, relief evident in her voice. "The public scandal, yes," Victor said, turning to face her directly. "But Isabella, I need to ask you something important, something completely separate from business or family obligations." Isabella turned to face him fully, curiosity clear in her expression. "What is it?" Victor reached gently for her hand, the same hand where the ring, meant originally for someone else entirely, still rested comfortably. "This started as chaos, a forced situation neither of us chose. But somewhere along the way, through danger, lies, and constant uncertainty, I found something real, something I never expected to find in this world." Isabella's heart pounded gently, waiting for him to continue. "Isabella," Victor said softly, "would you consider staying, not because of scandal, or family pressure, or temporary arrangements, but because this, us, feels like something worth protecting permanently?" Isabella felt tears gently forming in her eyes, overwhelmed by emotions she never expected to feel toward a man she had met under such chaotic, unexpected circumstances. "Yes," she whispered, her voice steady despite her emotional response. "I'd like that very much." Victor smiled genuinely, pulling her gently into his arms, the city lights glowing softly around them as the danger, chaos, and uncertainty that had once defined their relationship finally settled into something peaceful, genuine, and real. What began as a mistake, a ring slipped accidentally onto the wrong woman's finger, had become the beginning of a story neither Victor nor Isabella had ever imagined, proof that sometimes, even the most unexpected mistakes lead directly toward the life we were always meant to find.